Ladies and gentlemen, for our next panel, introducing the Communications Manager at the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation, Emma Fried-Cassorla, the founder of StreetsDepartment.com, Conrad Benner, and filmmaker and journalist, Cory J. Popp.
Welcome. So today we're going to talk about digital storytelling, the impact and engagement that it has. And so I wanted to start off just with us introducing ourselves to give you a little background about why we in particular are speaking. So I ran a blog called Philly Love Notes for 3.5 years, where I had people submit love letters to Philadelphia. I met almost every single one of those people in the places that they chose, and I published them on a website, and they were just these really beautiful love stories that still exist, and I continue to promote Philadelphia through social media and other channels.
So my name is Conrad Benner. I'm the founder and editor of StreetsDepartment.com, which is a Philadelphia-based photo blog that highlights and celebrates street art, graffiti, and urban exploration in the city of Philadelphia. I also run an Instagram. Oh, that's my photo. That's okay. And I also run an Instagram of the same name, Streets Department. It's about 4.5 years old.
I'm Cory Popp. I create around 2-minute cinematic videos about people and places in Philadelphia. So you'll see some video running in the background. That's some stuff I've done.
So I really wanted to start off this panel just kind of talking about what digital storytelling is versus a more traditional storytelling, at least what our definition of it is. So if you guys can kind of talk a little bit about what you think the differences are between digital and traditional, and what some of the limitations and benefits are to digital versus traditional.
Sure. So, traditional media is sort of what I grew up with, right? Newspapers, magazines, and TV. And then digital is social media. It's Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Periscope. I mean, we could go on. And some of the limitations, I think the limitations with traditional media are sort of as you'd expect. To have a newspaper, a TV station, or a magazine, you have to have these sort of big organizations. And big organizations can't be necessarily as experimental or agile as some of the smaller guys like us on social media. So I think it's agility and the ability to experiment is probably the biggest obstacle for traditional media.
Yeah, and newspapers, broadcast TV, like they need entire teams to put videos together to tell any stories. And what we're doing is we're publishing our own stories. We're finding our own ways to get stories out there that are created by us or told by us.
Yeah, everyone remember that? Porta potty heaven. But today, if you're anywhere there, you can't pee anywhere. So you could go to 30th Street.
And just to add to that, I think one of the other things that is really important about digital storytelling is the speed at which it happens. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about some of the impacts. But you could take a picture, have it on Instagram, and start a movement within minutes, which is pretty impressive and is not something that could be done traditionally. So I wanted to also kind of talk a little bit about what the mediums are for digital storytelling. So for the blog, I had a WordPress blog, I had different social media channels. On occasion I would work with traditional media to get my stories out to other larger audiences. So what about you guys?
Yeah, so I have a blog as well. It's a WordPress blog, StreetsDepartment.com. Feel free to save it right now. And then I use Instagram. Instagram's my biggest channel. So I'm a photo blog, I'm a photographer, and Instagram, all social media is really visual now, but Instagram sort of started that visual revolution on social media. So I have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Facebook, and a Periscope, and a Vine.
I still don't even know what Periscope is.
Really? It's a lot. Yeah. I'm sure, who's Periscoping in this room right now? Someone's Periscoping. Yeah.
Is anyone doing it?
It's a live streaming platform that's sort of like Snapchat, but for adults and not so raunchy.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
So for me, what I'm producing is videos, and it's all digital, and it's all online. So YouTube, of course, is a big one for me, as well as Vimeo. And then I also share just like little snippets of it from Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, just to share it.
And I have to say that some of Cory's videos are, if you follow him on Instagram, Cory J Popp,
Yes.
are absolutely hypnotizing. You can watch them on loop for 5-10 minutes. I've done that. It's scary. So just to quickly talk a little bit about some of the stories that you guys have told. So this is kind of a little lightning round, I guess. What do you consider to be your first story that you told as a storyteller?
Sure. So one of the first stories I told and what really sort of elevated my blog was when Ishnitz, who's a yarn, do any of you know Ishnitz? You could raise your hand. Okay. So about 5 years ago when I started the blog, she did these yarn bombs on the L, the Market Frankfurt line. Those photos and that story just blew up. So not only did it work really well on my channels, but Time Magazine bought one of my photos and talked about it. I mean, it was really the beginning of yarn bombing. It was sort of a new phenomenon. It was an interesting take on street art. It's a very feminine art form, a very soft approach, a new idea for street art. And I think it just sort of blew some people's minds.
Yeah, no, I think that's when I first started following you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So all of my stories, they're promoting Philadelphia as a great place to live, to work, just bring your business to. So I focus on individual places and events, and people as well. So one of the stories that I've done recently was following a group of this breakdancing family. There was the dad, the brother, and then his 3 sons. The youngest was 4. So they go up and down on the Broad Street line, breakdancing to raise money. And that's just a way to highlight what they're doing and show people that they're out doing this, and you can watch them doing it. So.
And I will say, working for the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation, we run Spruce Street Harbor Park, and based off of Cory's video, I actually hired them to come to the park, and it was amazing, and it was fantastic, and I would not have known about them had Cory not made that video. Mm-hmm. So, maybe you can give us a little insight into some of the stuff that you're doing currently. Anything you can kind of give us a little sneak peek?
Yeah, well, it'll be my 5-year anniversary in January.
Congratulations.
You feel free to clap for that. And I'll be having a show, oh crap, I guess I'm announcing this, at Paradigm Gallery in South Philly on December 22nd. But double check my Instagram later, I'm not 100, yeah. It's happening, I just don't know when.
Yeah.
January.
So I visited Penn's campus for the first time in the fall, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's incredible right now. I just went there with my camera and started filming stuff, and I was not planning on doing a video about it, but it was just so great that I have to put it together. So that's something I'm working on right now. Should be out next week, but it's gonna be great.
Also Drexel's campus,
Yes,
right? We need
Drexel,
to, yay,
sure.
Drexel. So what have responses been like to the stories that you're telling? If you can give some really specific examples.
Well,
I thought that
I mean,
might be the waterfront for a
yeah.
second. We roll around in those things a lot. But yeah, so what's some specific examples of people interacting with you, responding to what you're putting up, and really how are people normally reaching out to you guys, both of you?
Sure, so I mean, I think the overwhelming reaction to most of my content is just that people like it. I mean, that's the easiest engagement. Oftentimes, the street artists I document are calling attention to some issues in Philadelphia. I think one of the most popular posts I ever did was when Kid Hazo, who is a sign artist in Philadelphia, printed a huge ticket for the PPA and ticketed a PPA car that was parked illegally. Whether it's that or, part of what my blog does too is explore sort of abandoned spaces. So I did a series last year exploring some abandoned schools in Philly. So I think that gets the conversation started about, okay, well, why do we have so many abandoned schools? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, good timing.
Whoa, okay, perfect timing, yeah, so.
And then, so how do people reach out to you they obviously like your pictures, but are they emailing you? Are they, I know that there's a lot of, that one's good too. There's a lot of artists who do reach out to you to bring you along when they're doing
so
stuff.
the blog started with just me and like a $100 camera walking around the city. I walked everywhere I went, and it evolved very quickly to artists reaching out to me. So once they saw, no one was talking about the really vibrant, amazing street art and graffiti scene here in Philadelphia. And certainly no one was talking about it on a daily or weekly basis. So as soon as I started the blog, artists started reaching out to me and saying, oh, I'm going to do this thing over here, or do you want to come out with me while I install and photograph it? And today, I still get that, and I get people who will comment on my posts that they just saw something in their neighborhood, or did you see this over here? So I'm just constantly running around the city.
Yeah. So all of my videos have this common thread of showing the hidden beauties of Philadelphia. So the emotional impact is just of pride and wanting to come and visit if they've never lived there, or returning. So
people are so people are. I know that we've been talking about this, and you were saying that people reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you about how the video has impacted their lives. I think one of the interesting things about digital communities, at least in the way that we tell stories here at the Breakdancing Kids,
4 years old.
he's adorable. And the way that we tell stories a lot of times is that, I don't know about you guys, but I never really was a target of any sort of negative feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there would be some critiques sort of in terms of, how does something look, or here's some suggestions for running your blog better. But it was never like, this sucks. I don't like what you're doing. You're a terrible person. So I felt like at least the feedback that I was getting was extremely positive and very different than if you look at a lot of the traditional media. How about you guys?
Yeah. Well, there's always someone who's going to be upset about something. They're always find like the negative thing about it. I do get a lot of messages from people who are just moving to Philadelphia, who know nothing about it, who they look up these videos and they've never seen Fishtown before, but now they can watch it. They can see what it looks like, to see what the subway looks like. That it's not really it doesn't have to be an intimidating place, but there's like friendly faces and people just enjoying themselves, dancing and stuff.
And look, like the three of us, we tell really, generally speaking, like very positive stories about Philadelphia. We're excited about living in Philadelphia. I grew up here. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see the changes that are happening and know some of the people who are making those changes happen. We're not the 6 o'clock news where we're talking about things that are...
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, exactly, right. We're sort of highlighting a different part of Philadelphia that I think really wasn't being paid attention to.
Which I think is also right, which is a really big, I think can be a really big difference between us and some more traditional media is you do watch the 6 o'clock news, it can be very, very depressing.
Terrifying.
And then you look at your
don't watch
Instagram
it.
account and it's a lot of like cute cats and dogs and the Ray Street Pier if you look at mine.
Or just like artists making a difference, or the petition we started with SEPTA 247 to have SEPTA run their trains 24 hours a day, which after a long fight for a year and 3,000 signatures did end up working out. Being only on the weekend for now, but hopefully one day it'll be 7 days a week.
Yeah, so I did want to get into that because I think one of the interesting things about Cory and Conrad being here is that the impacts that they have are very personal to some people, to that family or to the people who are reading their looking at their photos or their videos, or our artists who are being profiled by you. But I think one of the interesting things is also the very far-reaching impacts that you guys have had on the city. So I was hoping Conrad could talk a little bit more about 24/7, which you've just started on, and then Next Stop Democracy.
Sure.
And then Cory, if you could talk a little bit about sort of changing the visual identity of Philadelphia.
So I grew up in Philadelphia. How many here grew up in Philadelphia? Sweet. Oh, nice. Okay. And every job I've ever had, except for the past few years, I've had a job that's ended after midnight. From Old Navy when I was 16 at the gallery, we'd have monthly inventories that would end at 2 in the morning, to Capogiro that I worked at up until a few years ago, closes at 2 in the morning. I need to take the train. That's how I get home. Or I pay for a cab. This is even before Uber. And it always annoyed me that our train stopped running, and in its place, we get the Night Owl bus, which is not as efficient, doesn't run as often, and isn't as fun to wait for. I don't know, it's kind of scary to wait for at 2 or 3 in the morning. So I started a petition last year to have SEPTA run their trains 24/7. It got 3,000 signatures in 2 weeks. Online signatures, but they still count. And we took that petition to SEPTA, and like I said, they tested it, and it's been successful. They got a 50% to 100% increase in ridership during their tests, and they were just like, this is a no-brainer. And then recently I've been working on a project called Next Stop Democracy, which is working with a lot of the artists I've been documenting, including Nosgo here, to create signs that say vote here and vote aquí, to place outside of polling locations, to work as a wayfinding thing, to show you where to vote, to be celebratory. In places where Election Day is celebrated, or you have the day off, or whatever the case may be, people vote more. and also to use a little influencer peer pressure. You know, these guys and myself, all of us have really big audiences on social media. Can we use those audiences to talk about things that are important, like the fact that we should all be voting? So yeah, we've just spent the last 9 months working on that and just complete it. We don't have the research yet, but we'll find out if it was effective. We're working with researchers at Penn.
And it was also a Knight Foundation funded project.
Yeah.
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 How about you, Cory?
So for most people who live around Philadelphia, live in the suburbs or maybe in cities around Philly, their only introduction to Philadelphia is the news. So they'll see the hit and run, they'll see just the murders or whatever. I know there was the hitchhiking robot got smashed.
We're never going to live there.
It's like, of course it happened in Philadelphia. So really, like, the impact of that is that people think Philadelphia is a dangerous place or it's a dirty place. So what I'm doing and what Conrad's doing is just showing that it's not a dirty place. It's actually beautiful and very affordable to live. So it's friendly to creatives like us.
I'd say it is dirty, but I kind of like that. I like a little bit of grit.
Yeah.
It's not all dirty, but there's a little bit.
It's
I
still
like
there
that.
a little bit. Yeah, so it's really just kind of changing public perception that Philadelphia is an incredible city to live in and to work at. So.
Yeah, and I think that's, when I was doing Philly Love Notes and what I continue to do, that was the impetus behind it, was to really change how people talked about the city, how people saw the city. And we've been seeing that change now. And I think you even see that bleeding over into traditional media too, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah. People have pride again.
They actually do have pride again. And I think that's pretty visible. I think probably a lot of people who are here in this room are here because they have some connection to Philadelphia, want to see it better. So I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit because we have to actually talk about the fact that money is involved in this. Just like traditional media, digital media doesn't exist for free. And so we need to figure out how you could become a digital storyteller, maintain your authenticity, and make money. So Cory and Conrad have been nice enough to sort of explain a little bit about how you make money as a digital storyteller. So they're going to give you some examples about how you do that while maintaining, an openness to stories that might not make you money, and an openness to just sort of really talking about things that might, be outside of the scope. So
we are passing around a dish in the back. You can feel free to donate or just
or
approach
pay,
us afterwards.
Venmo or something.
Donations as low as $20. No, it's been a challenge, and it's something I've worked hard at. So, like I said, the blog's been going on for 5 years, the Instagram for 3, and I've been doing it for free. It was a passion project for the first handful of years, but I'm lucky. Everyone loves that one. That's Ishnitz again.
Yeah.
Calling attention to the fact that, hey, should we have a statue of that guy in the middle of our city? in the middle, though? I don't know. Maybe somewhere deep in South Philly, but across from City Hall, let's just let it sink in. So now I've been lucky enough to have a big enough reach and a big enough audience where I can do things like I do sponsored content. I'm very clear when it's sponsored. 95% of my content is not sponsored content. It's stuff that I just want to talk about. I do not have advertising on my blog because blogs and websites are dying, and there's absolutely no money. Whoa, I thought there'd be a laugh there. Are not where money's made. It's sponsored content on social media. So yeah, when I do sponsored content, it's clear there's a sponsored hashtag. And I also do some strategy work on the side, for social media and digital communication.
So what would be an example of sponsored content sponsored storytelling that would fit into your social?
It's generally, for me, because of my reach is on Instagram, it's generally just an Instagram photo. I just worked with Bacardi this past weekend. On some sponsored content. They invited me out to a house party that they had. It was actually really fun, with some other influencers that they identified. On the waterfront.
On the waterfront.
And we basically just sat around, talked, networked, and I took a cool shot and posted it to Instagram with the hashtag sponsored. The interesting thing that differentiates, I think, old media from new media is that when I do sponsored content, people know I'm a person who needs to pay my rent and pay my bills and eat food most of the time. So when I do sponsored content, I feel like my audience, and I've heard this reaction, are generally open to it. And I've even had people do the clap emoji, people are happy when I get sponsored content, whereas an ad in a magazine or in a website, you just kind of roll your eyes past it. So I'm grateful to have that opportunity, and I'm grateful that my audience sees that it's a way to support myself.
Yeah.
Cory?
So I pretty much have the dream job. I go around Philadelphia and just film awesome stuff, put it together in stories. So I get this question a lot, how do you actually make money doing this? And I wish I could say it's just really straightforward and easy, but I don't get a paycheck from YouTube, unfortunately. So what we have to do is we have to be really creative with how we make money, and we have to have a lot of patience and try new opportunities. And I know we both sold some prints, photography that we've done. I've done some sponsored posts as well, sponsored stories. And I mean, the way that I make money primarily is through licensing footage. So one of my biggest clients is for the show, How to Get Away with Murder, which kind of goes against what I was saying before about showing Philadelphia in a great way, because the show is about murder. But yeah, I mean, you just have to get creative with it and have a lot of patience and know that what you're doing in the long run is really a great thing.
So I know we're out of time, but I really wanted to ask them one question, which is, do you guys consider yourselves to be storytellers?
I think of myself more as a documentarian and maybe even like an archivist. There's no one talking or documenting the great, amazing street art scene we have in Philadelphia. And I'm really excited to be like 70 years old one day and look back and say, if I had the blog for 20 years, here's what street art looked like in Philadelphia during that time. Here's what Philadelphia looked like. Here's what abandoned spaces look like. So maybe less of a storyteller personally and more of a,
Archivist.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm definitely a storyteller, but what a lot of people don't see is that I can't do it 100% of the time. I have to also be the businessman, and I have to wear other hats to get the stories out there to continue with it. So while I do say I am a storyteller, I also am a lot of other things just to make it work.
So in short, you should follow
Yes.
both of them and support them. And, larger than just the two of them, supporting creatives on social media actually can be really, really, really helpful and important and allow them to continue their storytelling. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks guys.